everyone, this is Lisa and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to go over the Western classes from the critiqued show. If you're interested, you can go and have a look at the classes and see what all the comments were on the other classes and other horses and just take a look. So we're just going to go through this very quickly. I'm starting off again including a document, and you'll find that linked below in the comments. And in this document, I'm starting off just like I did for the English one with a general checklist. And a lot of these things are the same as in the English. I just wanted to include it again. And I mean, very simple. Please go through and read it. I'm not going to read it all out to you. And it covers the doll, the horse, and the tack, and the documentation. Pretty similar to the last one. One thing I would want to notice is some of the photos were very dark. And I found it very hard to see the doll's face, even to see if they even had a face. Some of the parts of the tack were covered, and this is very difficult for the judge for photo showing. You need to make it clear so that the judges can see it. I mean, if you're judging 20 horses in a class and you can't see one of them, they are going to be pushed down because of that. So make sure your photos are clear. And what I did here is link one app I use is Snapseed, and you can go there and just spot touch up, brighten the area. I mean, you're not changing the photo, just brighten up and make sure you've done your due diligence so that it is visible. So when you go to the bridle fit, you have to, as usual, make sure that the brow band is fitted, that the throat latch isn't hanging loose, and that the side of the bridle isn't touching the horse's eyes. And I saw that a lot. But another thing you see a lot is when you're using a shank bit, because of the way models and stuff are, they tend to go forward like this. However, in real life, the shank bit goes back. It should be behind the mouth on the horse. Another thing I noticed with the bridle is curb strange. And generally in the models, most of them just weren't fitted properly. They were too loose. However, if you're using a reference like this, it's incorrect in real life. If you have a shank, that doesn't work properly. It's not doing its job. You need your chain attached or a curb strap attached to this ring right here. Again, if you have another ring, this is wrong. It has to be up here like this. This is right and that is wrong. So make sure when you have a curb chain, if you're using a curb bit. In general, I didn't see too many issues with the actual saddle fit. Some were too big, some were too far forward, but generally they were pretty good. But the thing I see a lot of is that this back strap is over here. It should be connected to the front cinch. The rear and the front cinch should be connected. Because if this goes back, your horse can buck. Your model won't, but your horse will. Another thing, you have pegging strings, make sure they're vertical, or if the horse is moving fast, they can be going this way. Don't just let them flop all over the place. Be neat, and make sure your breastplate is fitted. Make sure it's not hanging down between the legs. Now, if you're going to use just one saddle, if you only own one saddle, that's fine. But make sure you tell the judge that you're at a fall fair. If you're showing AQHA Western Pleasure, you're not going to be showing down here in a barrel racing saddle. You must be using a Western Pleasure saddle for the higher end. However, at a fall fair, you can use whatever saddle you want. So what's your documentation? In a pleasure saddle, there is no rear girth or rear cinch. Same with a gaming saddle. And the gaming saddle is much lighter, very different. Again, no back cinch. But the reining saddles, you'll see, there's no silver on a reining saddle. And there is no silver very much silver, on a gaming saddle because the rider can cut their hands. Now, a cutting saddle is smooth. You generally see one piece through here. The back cinch you must have. And a roping saddle is more solid, and you'll often see this white wrap around the horn. Not necessary, but a rear cinch is necessary. So if you're showing at the higher levels, or if you're at a rodeo, you're going to need a saddle like this without silver. Another thing I saw here that was very common too in the English is that the doll's butt is not in the saddle. They're either sitting on the back, or they're sitting just with air showing. Your doll's butt should be in the saddle. Right down in the saddle. If they're not, lengthen their stirrups. Tweak them around until you've got them that way. If you can't get the doll sitting in the saddle, don't use the doll. Now let's take a look at some of the classes. Start with trail. Now the biggest thing I found with the problem with trail, we've got some beautiful setups, but the dolls were just looking off into oblivion and not involved. When you're doing trail, you should be looking where you're going. Now these guys, they're still looking where they're going, even though they're not looking down. Whereas you see most trails, and most of the documentation I saw, has the rider involved. The hands are forward, they're leaning, they're helping the horse somehow. They just look involved. Even if they're not really rocking forward, they're still doing the class. They're not looking up into the oblivion. I found that in a lot of classes. Another common thing I see in trail is a rider just standing there holding the rope for a gait, and the horse is doing nothing. This horse is backing up so that she is going to put that on there. But you have to make sure that she is leaning to put that on there and the horse is moving. This horse is not standing still. So you're involved actually doing something here. Okay, let's move on to some cattle work. When somebody comes in to cut, if you're going to pick out your cow, the horse is looking at the cows and the cows are looking back. The whole point is they want to know who the victim is. They all know what's going on, who's going to be picked. They have no idea, and they're wanting to know what's going on. This horse is walking forward and the rider is looking. The rider is deep in the saddle, looking where they're going, and they're in a position that horse is ready to go. So you're not just standing there, again, looking in oblivion with the cows going the opposite direction. When you're doing this, find a good reference to see where the cows are looking, where the horse is looking, where the rider is looking, and then follow that lead. If you're doing heading and heeling, the whole point is the header is going to gallop and rope the calf and then drag the calf off in the direction that makes it easy for the heeler to catch. They must stay out of the way of the heeler, yet giving them room. This horse is not to be turning in this direction, and I saw some of that. If they turn this direction and this horse is running, it's an instant accident. So you have to make sure that these two are working as a team. Also, when you're going to throw a rope, you're a forward. I personally rope myself. And when you throw it, it comes off your hand and it follows your fingers in the direction of which it's going to go. And to do that, your hand and your arm, everything must go forward for the first part of the rope. Now here's a good example of somebody throwing the rope. They're forward, the hand is in the direction of the calf's head. Then once they've roped, where's the next one? Sorry, they're going to lean back a little, but they don't lean back until they've actually caught the calf. Then all the motion starts to back up. The horse stops. The horse is going to start backing up. He is going to secure this rope. This rope is running through a neck rope around the horse's neck. So it's such as to just take a piece of string and tie it around the rope, and it's going to give you big bonus points. Then once they've roped them, they're going to jump off the right side. And here again, you see the neck rope. You see how much energy is going into that horse, the focus of the rider. This horse is then going to stand up and go backwards. So you understand the full section of what's going on. Once more in the cattle, we're looking at steer wrestling. And steer wrestling, both of these horses should be galloping forward, leaving just enough room in the middle for this crazy guy to jump off and catch this cow by the horns. They're crazy. So make sure this horse is going straight and this horse is going straight, because nobody should be interfering with the path of what's going on. Again, take a good reference and see what's going on. Check what tack they're using. Now on to Western Pleasure. I think Western Pleasure is the easiest class to show in and the hardest one to win. Because first off, the biggest thing that's going to throw most people is that the model is not a Western Pleasure model. I've seen people put in models that are all over the place and try to call it off as pleasure. And you cannot, in anything, if you're doing pleasure, you can't say, oh, the horse spooked. Because in real life, that's a problem, and so in models. Yes, your horse spooked. That is a scene class. So if you want a proper Western Pleasure class, you really do need a doll to do well. It's not essential, but it's really good to have if you're going to do well. And you see the doll sitting up straight. The reins are nicely smooth and looped. The bridle fits perfectly. You see the number on there. The saddle pat is equal there, showing beautifully. And the horse is in a beautiful pleasure stance. And let's move on to games. And again, like last one, I'm going to be really rude. And I'm going to put two pictures of myself in here. This is me riding my quarter horse gelding and my paint mare. The only difference is here, I'm okay. And here I'm 7 months pregnant. But hey, it is what it is. I'm crazy. So for gaming, you can either start on this barrel or that barrel. You come out, and this is really important. This is something I see a lot of. You go in wide, and as you get around the barrel, you come closer and closer. If you don't do that, you're going to hit the barrel. And your horse's nose must be facing the barrel at all times. So take that in account. If the nose faces out, you have a very high chance of knocking the barrel, and the judge will see that. So in wide, out close. And if you have a fence in your setup, the fence better not be here. The fence needs to be over here, so a horse going wide is not going to hit it. Now here's what I mean by the fence. Here's the fence. So she's probably coming around the first barrel. She's gone out wide, and this next step is going to take the horse a lot closer. His nose is pointing in. Her hand further away from the barrel is on the horn. They're using gaming reins. She has one hand on the reins, and she is not neck reining the horse. She is pulling the horse in. You do not, generally, most people don't neck rein a barrel racer. You very rarely see that. Here's another one. You can see her pulling the horse in. The nose is in. You have a tie down. Everything's in place. Very unusual to see a rear girth on a barrel racer. That I've never really see it myself, but these people are riding in them. So it's doable, but I wouldn't. Here's another one. He's coming out of the barrels, and that horse is going to run for home there. You can see he's getting forward, out of the way, and barrel racing is not a woman's sport. It is only a woman's sport in rodeo, where the little girls have to look all purty at the rodeo, but it's not a women's sport. I always raced against men, and they are very good at it. The other Western speed game that's popular is obviously pole bending. And I see a lot of strange things going on with pole bending. But the first one is your poles in real life are 21 feet apart. In 1/9 scale, that is 28 inches apart. So they are not close together. That's 2.5 horse lengths. And the horse needs that space to be able to weave. And you can see the pattern here about how they weave in and out. And down here, you can see the horse basically is galloping straight and shaping around the barrel by changing leads. So this rider will change leads as she comes around. But the idea is to stay as close to the poles as possible and not swing wide. It's a two-handed event, not one-handed. And she's guiding the horse around. At the end, it's taken exactly like it would for a barrel. So this is basically, we put a barrel there or a pole there, same thing. For the last official class, I'm going to talk about showmanship. And each breed has its own rules, but for AQHA, let's talk about that. The horse is divided into quarters, and the judge will be in one of those 4 quarters. And this description here, this picture shows you where the judge is versus where the handler is. So the handler only stays in these 2 front quarters, while the judge can go in all 4 of them. And it's important when you show showmanship that if you're going to have the horse standing there, you should also have the judge, because otherwise me as a judge can't tell where your judge is. If you're just standing there, it really doesn't show your knowledge as a showmanship person. So if you're showing showmanship, you should have a judge there. Now, the biggest problem I saw with showmanship is the shank chain coming out, it goes through and hooks down the halter. When it comes out of the halter, there should only be 3 or 4 links between the leather shank and the actual halter. And I see people holding, with their dolls, holding onto the chain itself. Now their hands should be very close. Let's scroll down to a real horse here. Here's the 2 or 3, 4 links. Her hand is right next to the horse's head. It looks like she's carrying a pizza box. That's the in thing now. It should look like you're carrying a pizza box. She's straight. They're both moving straight forward. She is between the shoulder and the horse's head, and she matches the horse. Everything is perfect. The halter fits. Again, the halter must fit. So if you don't have a judge, then a trotting horse is a better idea. If you have a standing setup, you should really have a judge. Now, there's many other classes you can do with a Western saddle, and it's really nice as a judge for people to actually show you all these new classes. Now, there's extreme cowboy race, and if you have horses that aren't in a pleasure position and doing all sorts of strange things, you can find almost anything in extreme cowboy race that you can set up for. So here's another one, ponying a thoroughbred. You can do all sorts of things, use any breed you want with a Western saddle, but just be creative and use good reference material. Another thing I wanted to show you here, there's a side saddle as well. The other thing I wanted to show you here is a friend of mine, Michelle, had written up an entire document of shows she did, and she sent it to me, and I've copied it and pasted it, and it covers English, Western, and driving and all sorts of things. And I've added it to the document below because I think it was really well written, and I just want to give you as much as I can so that you're successful in your showing. So that's all I have for now, and I just want to say, everybody, thanks for entering the show, and I am so happy to see everybody's work. I hope you appreciate the critiques you get. If you have any questions about showing Western, please post them in this video, and I'll answer them for you. Have a good day. Ciao. See you after I finish judging the other classes.